The inner 13 actuators for the structural test stand installed at Massey's. The water exit holes are being drilled into the flame trench bucket diverter at Sanchez. High bay's deconstruction begins at the build site, and new electrical and control bunkers are moved into position at the launch site. Welcome to episode 77 of Starbase Flyover Update. We'll cover all the Starbase developments from the 14th of March through to the 21st. Once again, the weather was perfect for high altitude flight over Starbase, Texas. Also, we have ground photos taken on the 20th of March. There is a lot to catch up on at Starbase, Texas in this episode. My name's Jeff A, so let's buckle up and enjoy the latest flights from 10,500 feet. We'll start our tour over at the Massey's test facility. Here's a labelled map of Massey's to get you oriented. Thanks to Proky for the weekly updates. At the back of the site, some of the concrete has been poured with further areas being prepared. The racks of high-pressure gas tanks have been moved closer to the Deluge tank farm. It's still unclear if these will be integrated to the farm or simply stored for some other use. Work continues at the static fire stand. To the side, some weathered steel panels appear to have been removed from the trench. Stacks of new material have appeared nearby, suggesting possible upgrades after unexpected wear from the long-duration static fire of Ship 34. Amid this maintenance work, you can see just to the left that a pipe connecting the lock supply to its basket strainers has been removed. Between the cryo test stands, the base for the new booster cryo stand is nearing completion of its top surface. Only a few remaining panels are seen to the side, and some of the outer sections have already been filled with concrete. Near the LOX tanks, the two foundation pads are preparing for CFA piles to be installed. A crawler crane has been delivered with a drilling rig, and the rotary drive is installed at the top, with the auger drill flights waiting to be attached. Spotted on a ship entering the port channel, two large cryogenic tanks have arrived. Since these appear to match the size and design of the other tanks around Starbase, it's speculated that these are for here at Massey's. The third smaller tank is also for Starbase, but we'll touch on that later at the launch site. Near this area, some new pipe assemblies are being fabricated. It was noticed that the spacing of the connections of this L-shaped manifold are suspiciously like the ports atop this tank at the back of the methane tank farm. The structural test stand has seen some significant progress this week. At its base, the two inner rings of thrust rams have been installed. At the third level, a new vertical beam has been added to the south side of the structure. Before moving to Sanchez, let's take a moment to explore the other areas on the west end of Starbase. The Highway 4 storage lot is largely the same as last week. The remaining boom segments of SpaceX's owned LR11000 are now grouped together, including the two spare sections that were previously closer to the turntables. Two lots to the west, the newest clearing looks unchanged from last week as well, though some deliveries of materials have been staged. A short distance further, we arrive at the lot where the tiny homes were staged. This week, additional trenches for utilities have been dug to expand this housing development. Finally, looking at the Rio West development, progress remains steady. Each group of contractors continue this assembly line-inspired building process. The apartments are getting closer to framing completion, with only one building remaining to have its roof installed. The first block of townhomes looks to be ready for framing crews to take over. The next two blocks above have each progressed to the next stage. The single-family homes that surround the site continue as well. The first now has a completed first floor layout, though it is unclear if it will gain an additional level or if its roof will finish it off. With that, let's move to Sanchez. Let's start with the labelled map of the Sanchez site, where crews are putting the final touches on some of the launch site infrastructure. Starting with the Pad B OLM, elbows are being installed to connect the water feeding manifold to the top deck deluge plate. It looks like SpaceX will solve the manifold's issue by drilling two more holes in it. Looking closely, you can now see they have moved all the diesel-powered welders to this side of the OLM. Now taking a look at the OLM sides, most of the remaining side panels have been installed and paint has been applied to them for protection from the corrosive environment. This is a good sign that at least these sections are complete. At the flame bucket area, two levels of scaffolding have been set up on one of the halves. It looks like the coloured section on it represents where they expect the exhaust plume to hit, so that the entire area will have a different hole pattern. In this post from Starship Gazer, several fabricators can be seen drilling holes in the surface of the flame buckets now that the pipes have been fully welded together. The cladding panels for Tower 2 have been relocated here. The area they came from may soon be used for more storage or construction. The new booster transport stand has received more attention. take a look at this ground photo taken the day before the flyover. At the scrapyard, Test Tank 16 has been moved here after a long structural testing campaign at Massey's. Remember, this was the tank that was used to test the structural integrity for ship catches in the future. Also here, the booster cryostand returned after booster 16 completed its cryoproof testing campaign. Finally, at the rocket garden, booster 15 has been moved from Mega Bay 1 to make some space for booster 16. Note that it's wearing its white cap. With all of that, let's move on to the build site. Let's go over this week's changes around the build site by starting at the high bay. It's now clear all the whispers you heard regarding the demise of the high bay have come true, with the crew beginning to remove window panes on the 18th. During this time, on the 20th, parts for the Liebherr LTM 11200 crane arrived and was raised for the first time on the 22nd of March. This is the largest mobile crane that Liebherr makes and will be used to assist with lowering the larger sections of steelwork as they are cut free. Unfortunately, it does not appear that we will get to see a mid-bay type deconstruction. The next thing the steel cutters attacked were the roof beams beginning on the 21st. The yellow bridge crane you can see in this aerial photo would be lowered piece by piece, starting with a trolley on the 24th. This ground photo from Sean Giesler, also taken on the 24th, shows how fast crews are working on this job, with the remaining roof and most of the interior of the skybar already removed. A temporary fence has been placed around the entire deconstruction zone, leaving a narrow path for ship sections to be rolled from the Star Factory door to Mega Bay 2. The new wall section inside the wedge part of the factory has seen little work this week. Since the last flyover, Ship 36 was lifted onto the middle stand of Mega Bay 2. Ship 37's forward dome section rolled into Mega Bay 2 on the 24th. Behind the bay, a new forward flap has been delivered. Over in Mega Bay 1, after Booster 15 was moved to join Booster 12 in the rocket garden on the 19th, Booster 16 returned to the bay after rolling from Massey's on the night of the 20th of March. This leaves what should be the rest of the Block 1 boosters, 14, 17 and 16, on the three main workstations. The Meme Street apartment complex foundation work continues, with more piles installed, and looking at the stack of pre-assembled pile cages, there are many more to go. At the Meme Street end, a rig is busy testing some of the piles by applying an upward force. These piles are friction piles, as they do not go down to bedrock. The force that they resist when lifted equates to the force that they will resist while being pushed down by the building's weight. The concrete for the next section of apartments near the old tracking station location has been removed since last week, with new formwork being readied for its replacement. We're unsure of the reasoning behind this. Let us know what you think in the comments below. The other set of apartments are making steady progress. Wrapping up the build site, the sushi bar looks to be in its final fit-out stage. Before moving on to the launch site, this flyover was made possible by our paid supporters on Patreon. Consider supporting us to gain access to high-quality photo galleries and roundtable discussion the same day we fly. Let's take a moment to look at this week's labelled map. Crews continue working at a rapid pace as Pad B systems are being installed. Following the first concrete pour in the flame trench, we can see that only the centre portion has been completed. Most of the pour is still covered in tarps, as they use these to control the cure rate of the slab. Atop the southeast exit of the trench, the plywood top form is being installed in preparation for the next big pour. Looking from the north, the placement of the first two speed core wall sections can be seen. The remainder of the gantry side panels are staged alongside. This ground image shows the wall panels arriving and how they are constructed. A thick footplate will be welded to the embeds of the flame trench, with panels stacking to shape the walls before concrete fills the void. Looking near the SpaceX LR11000, the two larger panels for the tower sidewall were already delivered. On March 24th, the final piece of the first row as well as panels for the second row of the walls were delivered. While here, let's look at these 4 long pipes for the deluge trench. It appears a 5-foot run and 4-foot run will be used, like the sizes at the Pad A deluge. In this ground image from Sean Giesler, the larger pipe delivered last week is positioned near the straight pipe to be connected prior to trench installation. The welder standing on the ladder gives a great sense of scale for these pipes. Now looking at the gantry, concrete has been poured on the second level. The third level now has the metal decking in place to also receive concrete. Nearby, new green pipework is being prepared for installation in the gantry. Moving around the end of the flame trench, a new trench for conduit is being dug around the perimeter. The launch mount commodities trench has progressed, with the forms removed from the recently poured concrete. What should be the final expansion loop for the cryogenic pipes is exposed for final build-out. Once this loop is complete, all that will remain is to cut off access through this area to build the last segment under this drive. The tower at Pad B has seen further reductions in scaffolding over the last week. The chopstick carriage had much of it removed, with only the tower near its centre spine still installed. The sticks would rise to the very top of the tower for the first time on March 23rd to allow for trench wall placement that was directly under the right arm. An observation made this week from this ground image is the presence of a torque tube-like device in the new chopsticks, with linkages to the landing rail that should keep the rails level during operation. This is something observed on Pad A, where the landing rail tends to raise and lower unevenly along its length. The deluge pipe trench has expanded in the last week. The blinding layer covers the entire trench, with a new wing pointed toward the corner of the tower closest to the flame trench. Under the water tanks, recently delivered pipe manifolds are being installed. The bank of 4 larger tanks connects with the larger 5-foot diameter manifold. The manifold has a flange on the top end, allowing for future connection of a possible 5th tank. The smaller tanks are connected with this narrower 4-foot diameter manifold. The first pieces with 3 ports are being slid under the tanks with a Y connection on the manifold. Near the 2 pipes seen in last week's flyover is the other half of the manifold. With 5 ports in these 2 pieces, we can expect the smaller tanks seen earlier at the port, which then arrived at the launch site in the early hours of March 26th, likely to be placed on the 5th set of pedestals. An elevated pipe bridge is being assembled on the 4 sets of foundations seen last week near the deluged nitrogen tanks. West of the older comms bunker, the conduits are being positioned, likely for a transformer pad to be installed soon. A temporary road can be seen nearby that allowed for the second power bunker to be rolled into place on the 22nd. Much larger than the first one at the pump farm, this one was still at the port during the flyover. This pump farm is making great progress again this week. The lower level and pump frames for all 9 systems are now in place, with the upper level being framed out. The 3rd pump assembly is installed and the 4th being placed on the 22nd. The 2 pipe assemblies for the lock subcooler exhaust were installed into the chimney. At the front of the tank farm, the smaller power bunker was already parked on the prepared piers seen in recent weeks. Nearby, continued wall construction to close the gap is progressing. At the end of Highway 4, construction of the roundabout continues. In this ground image we can see that they are keeping travel lanes open through the middle while preparing the road base to the north and south. Finishing this week's tour at Pad A, preparations for the next launch and testing continues. There are no obvious signs of timeline from the mount, however at the deluged tank farm, 3 MOVAC tankers are offloading water. This activity is typically a hint that some kind of testing using the water deluge is in the near future. Behind the tower, the trench seen last week is filled in, with rebar ready for a final layer of concrete. In the coming weeks, we'll have to watch what these pipes get connected to determine their use. Well, that's it for episode 77 of Starbase Flyover Update. Thank you for choosing to fly with RGV Aerial Photography, and we hope you all enjoyed the flight. If you liked what you saw today, please subscribe for more episodes and content so you don't miss out on the new videos each week. My name's Jeff A, and we hope to see you again from 10,500 feet.